Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, we head out to the field and get a harvest update from Dan Atkisson. He's a Rooks County farmer and president of the National Sorghum Producers. We also talk about prospects of getting things done in Washington during the upcoming lame duck session. Also reports from Kansas Corn, Kansas Wheat, the Kansas Farm Bureau, and as well our weekly features from the Kansas Livestock Association and Paragon Ag Advisors. The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leading in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online, kswheat.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future of Kansas corn. Online, kscorn.com. Well, according to the latest crop progress and condition report from USDA for Kansas, it shows winter wheat planting 83% wrapped up, emerged at 69%, and the condition was 46% good to excellent, 38% fair. Corn harvest 85% complete, soybean 63, sorghum 49, cotton 8, sunflower 51. Now all these are at least a little bit behind schedule. Of note, topsoil moisture in Kansas 78% adequate, 19% surplus. Subsoil moisture supplies 84% adequate, 9% surplus. Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue confirmed USDA is moving forward with releasing the second round of funds for farmers that are being negatively impacted by those foreign tariffs. The funds will be released in December, and payment rates for the second round of the MFP have yet to be released. Well, U.S. beef exports remained very strong in September. Pork exports continued to be impacted, though, by those retaliatory duties in China and Mexico. That according to data released by USDA and compiled by the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Beef exports cooled from the record results that were posted back in August, but were still significantly higher year over year.
Hi, I'm Sue Schulte with Kansas Corn, and here's what's going on with the Kansas Corn Growers Association. The association represents its members in policy and regulatory issues and promotes Kansas corn, including ethanol. Here's an update. On October 9th, President Trump directed EPA to get moving on a regulatory process that will allow E15 sales year-round. E15 is 15% ethanol fuel that is approved for use in passenger vehicles 2001 and newer. That's over 90% of the cars on the road today. Currently, an outdated EPA regulation prohibits the use of E15 in most cars during the summer months. President Trump held true to his promise to fix this problem. This is good news for corn farmers, ethanol plants, and consumers. Kansas Corn and our partners have been working to add E15 at fuel stations, and we now have 20 stations in Kansas that sell E15. Unfortunately, many fuel retailers couldn't justify adding a fuel that they couldn't sell all year. Year-round E15 will give those fuel retailers an opportunity to provide another fuel choice to their customers, and that fuel is lower cost, higher quality, and cleaner. The Trump administration said it wants regulations fixed before next summer, but nothing moves quickly at EPA. It will be a challenge to finish the process before the restrictions go back into place next summer, and Kansas Corn will work with national corn growers and other ethanol partners to push EPA to update the regulations to allow E15 fuel before the summer driving months. Find out more by following Kansas Corn on social media or by visiting our website at kscorn.com.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web, oldeseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. And Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. More at ksgrainsorghum.org. Welcome back. We're in the Graham Rooks County line, and back to talk with Dan Atkisson, farmer, and he's the president of the National Sorghum Producers, and we're out here in the wind. I tell you, Dan, a few days ago we could have used this to dry it out, but now it's harvest time.
Yeah, absolutely. We've even though we've been getting a little bit of moisture of an evening, we've had enough wind to dry things out where we can get started harvesting earlier in the morning.
Well, let's talk about the way this harvest has worked. We did have some snow in some areas. It has dried out. What are the reports you're hearing? What do you experience on your farm as far as yields go?
Our yields have been definitely above average. I think we've seen some lower test weights just due to the summer that we had and the abnormally low temperatures, but yields have been outstanding.
A lot of sorghum around this year, especially in certain pockets. It was one of those a couple years ago. There was some concern, and it's kind of made its comeback, even though one of our major markets is kind of dried up.
Yeah, we've seen the acreage in this area has remained steady, maybe even increased some. Since we had a very rainy summer, all the sorghum out here has done very well, and so we've got long lines and big piles at all of our elevators.
Well, talk about that. Talk about how that partnership works, say, with your local elevator, your local co-op, on because we've become such a diversified state with not only milo and sorghum or soybeans and corn.
Yeah, it's definitely important at the co-op level that we've got elevators that'll work with us to get our sorghum in. They've gone through great efforts to put in bunkers and ground piles so that we have room for this bumper crop.
What are you hearing around other places, some of that early sorghum down south?
It seems like anywhere that got the good rains like we did had a pretty good crop. The further south you go, the further it dried out, and their yields were average or below.
So yields are good. Test weights, have they been maintaining, or has it been kind of a hit and miss?
It's been hit and miss. I think it's been a varietal issue, just depending on what hybrid was placed where. The earlier hybrids we saw and definitely had lower test weights.
We're talking with Dan Atkisson, who is the president of the National Sorghum Producers. He's a farmer in Rooks County. We'll take a break and talk more in just a moment. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. And Agview.net, covering news and views in the Beef Belt and Western Corn Belt. Reliable and relevant, Agview.net. And welcome back to the Kansas Ag Report. We're on the Graham-Rooks County line in northwest Kansas, and Dan Atkisson, who is the president of the National Sorghum Producers, joins us. Back in his field. He jumped off that combine to talk with us a few minutes. We've talked about the yield on his farm and around. So we have this yield. We have almost a bumper crop. We've got to have a place to go with it. Now, with that being said, we know the market assistance payments have been out there. Look like some more are coming. Election is now over. They're coming back next week, Congress that is, to get things finished up. Are you optimistic that the agenda that is long will get accomplished?
Yeah, I'm still optimistic that we can push a farm bill through during this lame duck session. There's a long list of reasons why it's beneficial. Not only for us, but for our leaders in Washington to go ahead and push this across the finish line before the end of the year.
So are you hearing about the work requirement thing kind of getting figured out some way, some fashion? It seems like that's kind of been the biggest holdup.
Yeah, I don't think there's any definite answers coming out quite yet. Yeah. I do think there has been some compromises made and some headway being made towards figuring out that title of the Farm Bill. I think there's a few other titles that are probably going to be stickier issues, such as conservation.
Well, and that's one, of course, that hasn't been talked about a lot, but it does seem like there's a lot of discussions going that way. One of the things we are going to have is a new speaker. And have you had an opportunity, has the sorghum industry, the leadership kind of knows who those players are, how that might play out moving forward kind of beyond the Farm Bill? Say if for some reason the Farm Bill doesn't get complete, we got to start over again?
Yeah, and I think we've got prognostications just like anybody else. I don't think we've got a definite answer, but definitely going to find new leadership and find a way to work with them to get farm policy the way we need it.
Sure. We talked a little bit about trade. Looks like some inroads. Maybe we're seeing a little softening with the relationship with China. What are you hearing as far as that opportunity? Will that market come back? Maybe not as strong as what it was before, but is that, or is there another market that may be burgeoning for some of this sorghum?
Oh yeah, I think definitely the way the administration's talked in the last few weeks about China maybe wanting to come to the table, about wanting the two presidents to meet. I think that's definitely a good sign. If we can get sorghum back into China without a tariff, that's definitely a boon for us here at the farm gate, and definitely would move a lot of bushels that we've got piled all over the state, move that into China very quickly.
NAFTA 2.0, USMCA, that's another one of those things that's on the agenda, possibly getting passed and ratified by the end of the year. If not, it will be probably sometime. Of course, Mexico, big market for U.S. sorghum as well.
Yeah, and especially when China went out of the market due to the tariff situation. Mexico has been a historic buyer of U.S. grain sorghum, and so we'd be, of course, happy to ship grain sorghum south as well.
All right, Dan, we appreciate it. We know you got to get back on that combine and get that good crop in, so appreciate your time. Thanks for what you do.
Well, thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.
Dan Atkisson, a Rooks County farmer and president of the National Sorghum Producers, joining us. Stay with us. We'll have more coming up on the Kansas Ag Report.
All over the country, more and more communities are making the change to biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil. And the decision continues, improving the health and welfare for millions of Americans while adding billions to our national economy.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
Spring is sprung, and Premier Farm & Home has what you need to keep your yard crabgrass free throughout the season. With a complete line of pre-emergents, you can stop crabgrass before it starts. Premier Farm & Home, 900 Southwest University Boulevard, or find them on the web at heycow.com.
Researchers at Kansas State University are using gene editing to affect traits in wheat in a positive way. Professor Edward Akhanoff has recently published a study in which they have successfully increased seed size in a cultivar of wheat. He says this is our first product that shows that the system works and that we can effectively apply it and affect a trait in wheat in a positive way. Gene editing is a technology that gives scientists the ability to improve an organism's DNA, essentially by repairing a gene that is producing an undesirable outcome. K-State scientists have evaluated the entire wheat genome to identify individual genes that affect such traits as disease resistance, drought tolerance, and seed size, then use a protein known as CRISPR-Cas9 to introduce changes into a DNA code. CRISPR-Cas9 acts as a sort of molecular scissors to cut out the undesired part of a target gene or introduce new parts with improved properties. Wei Wang, a postdoctoral research assistant in Akhanoff's lab, spent much of the last 4 years analyzing and editing genes that could be used to improve future wheat varieties. He said he has a set of 25 to 30 genes that are in the project's pipeline, ready to be implemented in the breeding cycle in the next several years. Kansas wheat farmers are supporting this research through the Kansas Wheat Commission's two-penny wheat assessment.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here, the time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel, made from U.S. soybean oil.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
My name is Doug Zellinger, and I'm a 6th District Board of Representative on the Kansas Farm Bureau Board of Directors. Trade is the economic engineer of agriculture in Kansas. There is no doubt in our mind that as we look at our agriculture prices, it comes from the fact that we have 25% of our agricultural production nationwide that goes overseas to aid some other countries. Here in Kansas, we have 30 to 32% of our agricultural production that is moved to other countries, primarily Mexico. We also are in a situation where we need to be looking for new trade opportunities out there. I like to quote USMEF, United States Meat Export Federation. They said that in 2018 we had our strongest half in terms of exports. That's because of the quality product that we have, and we have done a lot of groundwork as individual and private companies in there. And so we have a major investment in trade that we really need to have the opportunity to have the trade agreements to make happen. So with that in mind, I would leave you with this thought: trade is the economic engineer in agriculture in Kansas.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel, made from U.S. soybean oil.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
The dairy industry is encouraged by the Food and Drug Administration's public comment period on the labeling of plant-based proteins with names specific to dairy production. Dairy groups have engaged with FDA for years in an attempt to get the agency to address concerns about how imitation products are marketed as dairy items to consumers. The concern over accurate labeling extends to nutritional shortfalls and the implications for public health. The dairy industry repeatedly has pointed out the proliferation of products falsely labeled as milk, yogurt, cheese, ice cream, and butter amounts to consumer fraud. FDA is asking for input on how consumers use plant-based products and how they perceive terms such as milk when it is attached to imitation dairy foods. policy approved by Kansas Livestock Association members at the 2017 convention in Wichita opposes allowing food products not derived from actual livestock or dairy production to use names exclusively associated with milk and meat. KLA will submit comments to FDA prior to the November 27th deadline supporting the protection of dairy-specific nomenclature. Meanwhile, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association continues to lead the political battle to determine how fake meat products are regulated and labeled by the federal government.
Agriculture information on your computer or mobile device. News and views on grains, livestock, policy, and opinions from newsmakers can be found by liking Agview on Facebook, and on Twitter, follow Agview News, a reliable and relevant source. Agview.net.
Spring is sprung, and Premier Farm & Home has what you need to keep your yard crabgrass free throughout the season. With a complete line of pre-emergents, you can stop crabgrass before it starts. Premier Farm & Home, 900 Southwest University Boulevard, or find them on the web at heycow.com.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here, the time is now. To meet end-user demands, the Soybean Checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
All over the country, more and more communities are making the change to biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil. And the decision continues, improving the health and welfare for millions of Americans while adding billions to our national economy.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
Good morning. I'm Derek Hermish with Paragon Ag. All three grain markets now have carry in them: corn, soybeans, and wheat. Now for corn and wheat, we've been accustomed to that for the last several years, especially in the wheat market with the extreme amount of carry that's been brought up in the last two. Soybeans have not been that way until this year. And as a marketer of your grain, you need to take that into account when it comes time to look forward into next year, 2019. A big reason for that being that there is going to be a lot of stored soybeans, and a lot of them unpriced this year in a lot of farmers' hands. Now that's not the end of the world to say that they have to be sold right now. But as a producer, if you are holding on to a lot of unpriced soybeans from this year, you need to look out and see what is available on next year's and get an earlier start. Right now, as of the moment of this taping, November 2018 soybeans are priced at $8.39, and November of 2019 soybeans are priced right around $9.04. That's a 65-cent rally if you just sold them right now. Now you may not be satisfied with that price of $9.05 at this moment, but where you're sitting on 1 year's crop and looking into next year's, taking advantage of that carry is going to be the way to go at some point. And for the last couple of years, getting an early start on soybeans hasn't necessarily been a farmer trend. This year, you probably want to change up things. I'm Derek Hermish. Have a good day.
The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leading in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online, kswheat.com. and Kansas Corn, building the future of Kansas corn. Online, kscorn.com.
Spring is sprung, and Premier Farm and Home has what you need to keep your yard crabgrass free throughout the season. With a complete line of pre-emergents, you can stop crabgrass before it starts. Premier Farm and Home, 900 Southwest University Boulevard, or find them on the web at heycow.com.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here, the time is now. To meet end-user demands, the Soybean Checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
That's our show this week. Be social with us at KansasAgReport.net or on Facebook and Twitter. Kansas Ag Report is also a podcast. Go to castbox.fm, search Kansas Ag Report. Well, thanks for watching the Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. We'll see you next week.